Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peace Podcast. This is season 3, episode 5. Just give me the freedom to let go, whatever that looks like. When we're thinking about freedom and how we are in the bondage of the constraints that we've put ourselves in, it makes me think of, recently, like during the Christmas slash springtime seasons, I usually do a clean out of toys. So anything that's in the toy bins that my kids haven't played with, or anything that I notice that, they have kind of put off to the side or, sifted over, I will take out of the bins. Now, oftentimes I do not do this when they're here for the sake of what I'm about to tell you next. But on the off chance that that happens when they're here, one of the things that'll end up happening is you'll have this baby toy. And now I'd like to preface this by saying we do keep some of the things that have nostalgic value to us. Like, for instance, my son said, not that long ago, I want to keep this in case I have kids one day. He's 7, but, forward thinking. I love it. I want to keep this because if I have kids one day, I want my kids to be able to play with this thing. And I said, cool, we can keep it. We'll put it in your box upstairs. So we keep like shirts that were like his favorite, or the, hat that he wore a million times when he was 2. We keep those things in the chance that he actually wants to use them for his own kids, but also for myself to like have that little baby box of nostalgia. But there are toys that I know for a fact he's never going to touch again. They are not toys that he would probably hand off to his kids. They don't really have any sort of memories attached to them, but he wants to keep the toys. Now, the reasoning behind him wanting to keep the toys could, like I said before, be that nostalgia. But there's also, and this is probably 90% more of a chance of being the case, him and his fear of thinking that he might miss the thing. So he's like, well, I don't want to give it away because then I might miss it. But if I keep it and I say I'm keeping it for a good reason, then maybe she'll let me have it on the off chance that one day I might actually play with it. The reality is he's not going to miss that thing, but he has a fear of letting go of it. And oftentimes that nostalgic part of the fear is saying, if I let go of this thing, am I also then letting go of the memories of this thing? Am I going to eventually want to pass it on to somebody else because of the memories that I've associated with it? And that fear of letting go is attached to the fact that I might actually miss it. And what if I regret letting go of it and later want to play with it and now it's gone? And don't we do that too when we're thinking about letting go of things that confine us or constrain us or have kept us in the space we're in, whether it's family members, job titles, things that we have held on to for eons, thinking that we need those things. And it can be a relationship, which a lot of my examples are going to be relational because I feel like that's oftentimes where we do see this. But it can be anything that you have an extreme fear around letting go of it. And today we're going to talk about the freedom to be able to let go of whatever it is. Because if you think about that thing that you fear letting go of, like just put that in your brain for right now. If you think about if that were alleviated from you, would you feel more effortless in your movements? Would you feel more freedom to move? Would you feel like you could kind of blow in the breeze as opposed to having these constraints on you? And if the answer is yes, then you probably need to process things through the lens of this pod today. And so, what happens when we hold on to something that we internally know that we should let go of, but externally can't process the fact of actually getting rid of that thing? And what happens initially is your ego steps in. So your ego is there thinking that it's keeping you safe, thinking that it's keeping you in the space that you've always known, where you're the most educated and you're the most comfortable, even if that space is not good for you. So the first thing it'll tell you is that you're strong enough to change it. And the reality is, no matter how much strength you muster up, you will not be strong enough to change it, but your ego will tell you you can. And as you know, I've been in toxic relationship after toxic relationship, and the reality has been that I knew within the first 6 months that those relationships weren't right for me, but I stayed for literal years thinking that if I could just know enough, be enough, and do enough, that I would actually be strong enough to fix it. And every single time that proved to not be true. When my dad was going through addiction, I thought I would be strong enough to fix it. I'm going to be strong enough to change this. Not, I have to cut this situation off to protect me, but I'm going to be strong enough to fix and change this. And then maybe he will follow suit. When I was, in my adulthood and realizing that like there were some parental things that I wish that I would have had that I didn't have, and just some struggles that I was having there, I thought that if I educated myself enough and shared things with other people that were the pain points that I had, that would make me strong enough to fix it. And because we think we're strong enough to fix it, we don't let it go. We just work on our strength. So we say, okay, I can't fix it yet, but if I get stronger, then I can. It's not fixable now, but if I just lift more and do more, then I'll be strong enough to fix it. And what happens in that space is that you're doing all the changing, working, and moving, but the person or the situation that you're in is remaining the same. And you think that if you become stronger, that you could in fact not just pull your own weight, but pull the weight of this other thing too. And that just isn't true. The truth about that is that even when your ego says that if you were just strong enough, that you could fix it and you could change it, the truth is that you can't change anyone, and you can't change the circumstances that you're in, that you're placed in because of that person. So you can't change the circumstances of your work environment. You can't change if they don't consider you, that you can't change if they're not prioritizing your well-being. Can't change that. No matter how strong you are, no matter how many conversations you have, no matter how tough you think you can be, no matter how good at your job you think you have to become, you will not change the circumstance unless the people who are creating the circumstance decide that they want to change it. If you have parents who aren't doing the things that you want them to do, or siblings who are treating you poorly and acting as if their title in your life entitles them to something that is of yours, it entitles them to that because they're a part of your life. No matter how strong you are, and no matter how strong your ego tells you need to be, the reality and the truth of that is you cannot change people. You can't fix their addiction. You can't fix their internal wounds that are bleeding onto other people. You can't fix their lack of emotional intelligence. You can't fix people. It does not matter how strong you become if you don't have two willing people reciprocating the effort inside of whatever that situation is. So if you're in a space today where you're thinking, well, if I could just be a different daughter, then my mom would be different. The truth is, you're not going to change her. If she has an unwillingness to change, you won't fix that. If you're in a space today where you're like, if I could just be a better employee, whatever that looks like to you, then maybe the circumstances would change. Maybe they would see me. Maybe they would value me. The truth about that is, unless the people in the space change the way they think, no matter what you do or become, they will not value you just because you're becoming stronger and doing more. It's not going to change them. If you're in a space where relationally you're with somebody and you just think, I just have to do more. If I knew more and I did more, then they would follow suit and they would be just like me. I believe that being an example and influencing the relationship 100% can work. But if you're dealing with somebody who has an unwillingness to be influenced, not going to change. You're not going to change them, and they have no desire to change. The second thing that your ego does inside of a space where you're having a fear of letting go of something is that it says that you have to fix it to either win, be perfect, or be perceived well. So I must fix it to win. I must fix it to prove somebody wrong. I must fix it to be the perfect person that I desire to be. I must fix it so that people won't perceive me in this other way. So we do all of these things, even if it's creating a facade to pretend like it doesn't exist, even if it's pretending like we're happy in the situation because we don't want to be perceived as ungrateful for the opportunity, even if it's not sharing the information, which is a lot of times why abuse victims won't share, because they're embarrassed and they don't want you to think that they are fill in the blank here. Unfortunately, your ego tells you that to keep you safe, because your ego has said, you have the power to fix it, and if you want to be someone who is perceived in this certain way, or if you want to be somebody who's perfect because perfection keeps you safe, or if you want to be somebody who wins at life, then you have to fix it. That is the only option. And your ego is wrong. If you have a car that no matter how much maintenance you've done to the car, no matter how many times you've taken this car to the mechanic, it won't start, it won't go, and it won't perform its function, it does not matter what you do. You must not fix it. You must go get a new vehicle, because that vehicle is not going to serve you. And the truth about that thing that your ego is telling you is that fixing it is impossible if you're doing it alone. The true testament of winning is alignment to your own self, to your needs and your wants and your values and your what God has told you and your intuition and all these things. So if you think that you can fix it when you don't have any of the tools to do so beyond what you know yourself, you're lying to yourself. Because the truth is, if you're in a relationship, you need two people to work for it to be fixed, two people to change and move for it to be fixed. So if that is not happening, then fixing it is impossible. There is not a must fix it. There is a must listen to what God tells me, must stay in alignment with myself, must feel like winning is alignment, must understand that I can't do this alone. Those are all the musts. The truth is, fixing something, when you're talking relationship, when you're talking, in work and all of these other things that we confine ourselves to because we've put constraints on it, it is not going to be possible if you're doing it alone. And you are not going to really process it as a win if it's out of alignment with yourself. So if you're doing it to be perfect, first of all, your goal is unattainable. But secondly, if you're the only one trying to achieve perfection, it's not going to happen. Because this is a team sport. It's not, I ran the sprints, right? It's a team sport. You got to have a goalie. You got to have a striker, right? Like, you can't just play this all by yourself. And so if you think that it's going to make you perceived well, you're pretending anyway. So you're not truly being perceived or seen at all, because you're pretending that you're fixing something that is impossible to be fixed because you're doing it by yourself. So when your ego tells you that you have to fix it, I would encourage you to question its why. Like, why must I fix it though? Because I want people to think I'm perfect? Well, it certainly isn't perfect to be in an abusive relationship. Why must I fix it? Because I want people to perceive me well? Well, it certainly isn't going to be perceived well that I'm allowing a toxic relationship with my parents or siblings just for the sake of having family in my life. Why? Why am I trying to fix it? Is it because I think if I fix it, I'll win? Well, it certainly isn't winning to be in a toxic work environment. And even though my paycheck looks good, which is what I show everyone else, I'm going home every day drinking half a bottle of liquor because I can't endure the stress of this work environment. That's not winning. That's not in alignment with you. In fact, that's the farthest out of alignment because you're self-medicating to just endure. The third thing that happens when you get that fear of letting go of something is that your ego tells you that it's failure if it doesn't work. You got divorced, you're a failure. You are in a toxic relationship again. This one eats away at me because I know that feeling. You're a failure. You're getting paid 6 figures, but you're not even enjoying your position or thankful or grateful for the fact that you have this type of job. You're complaining about the environment. Failure. If your ego tells you it's a failure if it doesn't work, it's because your ego thinks that you have to succeed at everything you attempt. And succeeding looks like bringing it all the way to completion, right? So if you've tried to make your parents love you, even if they weren't emotionally available, in order to succeed, you had to try and try. You didn't give up. It was a failure if you gave up. If you've had to be in relationships where you knew you should leave, but you continue to stay in those relationships, it's because tenacity felt like success. But failure would be giving up on the relationship, even though you know it's not for you, even though it's not in alignment with you, right? And so your ego has told you what you're experiencing right now is good enough, and you don't want to fail at this thing because the world's going to think you failed again. And so therefore you should make it work. But the truth is, failure is staying in something that no longer serves you and you cannot blossom. Failure to thrive is quite literally the inability to grow and sustain life. And when you're in those types of relationships, when you're spinning your wheels to try to make people want you, like you, and treat you well, you are not thriving. You are failing to thrive because you're in a situation where all you can do are the methods of survival. Thriving doesn't happen in those spaces because in order to thrive, you need somebody to nurture you. You need nutrients. You need, all of these other sunlight, water, all of the things that make a plant thrive. You need that from the people. You need light and you need happiness and you need reciprocity and you need all these things. And if you're not getting that, then that's the failure because you can't thrive in this space. So failure is staying in a place where you can't blossom. Oftentimes we tell ourselves, well, I got into this bad relationship, I did it again, and look at me failing again. But if we really told the people around us the logistics and the details of that relationship, they would want us to leave because failure is watching someone that you love be treated poorly because they want to stay, because longevity means more than actual love. And so, when people say, oh, I've been married for 25 years, I think that's a beautiful thing. But I also wonder how many of those years have they been happy? Like if they've been married for 25 years, but they were only happy the first 5, then that doesn't feel like a successful marriage to me. If they've been married for 15 and all 15 were glorious, then I regard that as a successful marriage. And when I say glorious, I don't mean without any, qualms or anything that went wrong because we know that that's not real. But you get the drift of what I'm saying. And so we have to change our perspective of what failure is because failure is staying in a space that you cannot grow or blossom, that you're not going to be able to be yourself and truly be in alignment with who you are. Failure is not letting go of something. I don't even use the term giving up. Letting go of something that is depleting you. Because certainly if it's depleting you, it's not God's best for you. It's not what God intended for you. And so if you think back to that example that I gave you in the beginning of how my son has a really hard time letting go of toys, even if he doesn't play with them, even if he knows he's never going to touch them again, even if he's 7 and those toys were intended for a 1-year-old, he has a really hard time letting go of them. And if you think about that in terms of this thing that you're currently processing, that you know that you need to let go of, but you're having a really hard time doing so. And remember I said that sometimes it's nostalgia because you have memories attached to it and you don't want to lose those memories. Promise you the first thing is a lot of the memories that you think are attached to those things you've created some narratives in your head that make them a lot more happy than they actually were. You have fabricated those memories to make them ones that were good times when they weren't actually that good, and you have a ton more bad memories. And the second thing is that you're afraid of missing it. So when I'm fearing letting it go, I'm afraid that I'm going to miss it. And something that I want to leave you with is this: you will never miss what no longer serves you. You might miss being in a relationship. You might miss feeling like you had a mom to call. You might miss, feeling like your sibling was understanding of your situation because they experienced it with you. You might miss the paycheck for a little while. But what will happen is you will become more of you when you let that thing go. And though you might miss that certain aspect of it, you will become more of you. And because you're not wasting time in a space that no longer serves you, you'll start to find the things that are more of you. Because if all the toy boxes in my house are filled with toddler toys, then my 7-year-old will never know the experience of playing with the really cool Legos and following the instructions, because a toddler can't play with those toys. And the same thing is true of your life. If all of your compartments of life are filled with things that no longer serve you in the name of helping your ego to feel safer by enduring things and trying to be strong enough and trying to fix it because you want to be perceived in a certain way and you don't want to fail, then none of those spaces can be full of the things that actually serve you. So if you're in a space today where you're asking yourself, should I leave this thing? I encourage you to go through the same process that I went through, which is, would I actually miss the thing, or would I miss the potential of the thing? Am I holding on to memories, and are those memories even true? And take those truths and run them through your head. Am I trying to change somebody? Because the truth is you can't change anyone. Am I trying to fix something that's impossible to fix because I'm doing it on my own? Because winning is being in alignment with me. Does this feel like it's in alignment with me? And then lastly, am I staying because I don't want to fail in a space where I can't be nurtured and blossom? Because if that's the case, then I need to leave this space so that I can nurture myself and blossom into who I'm supposed to be. If you need additional help, please reach out. Go to all my socials, like and subscribe to those pages. Follow me on there. Reach out to me in my DMs. I would absolutely love to do coaching sessions with you. I have those available. I can put the link in the description. Whatever you need to do to process these thoughts, I just encourage you to no longer commit to being bound by staying into spaces that don't serve you when there's a world out there of things and opportunities that are for you. If your fear is of letting go of something, realize that oftentimes letting go allows your hand to be open to grasp the things that are for you. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. And remember, if this video resonated with you, please like it, leave a review. And if you think it would resonate with someone else, please share, because the knowledge gained and kept to yourself is selfish, but if shared with other people, it might just be the thing that they need to break free from the bondage that they're in. And that's what this pod is all about, helping people break free from the bondage that they are experiencing and that their lives and themselves have put themselves in. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you, and I'll see you again next time.